Two meals for $1 may sound like a life hack. In today's China, it is something else entirely. It is a strategy of survival quietly adopted by a generation that has learned to expect less from the economy, from employers, and from the future itself. Across Chinese cities, young people are cutting spending not because minimalism is fashionable, but because uncertainty has become permanent. Youth unemployment remains high, wages are shrinking, and home ownership feels increasingly unreachable. In response, a new discipline has emerged: spend less, save more, and document restraint as a form of control. This shift worries policymakers who want domestic consumption to power economic growth. But for China's youth, consumption no longer represents confidence or reward. It represents risk. And until that risk is addressed, no amount of encouragement will convince them to spend. In a brightly lit food court in Beijing, a young man and woman sit across from each other, each holding a small green and white dessert cup. The scene appears unremarkable until one learns that their combined meals cost little more than $1. For many young Chinese, this is no longer a novelty or a challenge, but a carefully calculated lifestyle choice. China, long portrayed as the engine of global growth, now faces an unexpected dilemma. Its young people are not spending. At a time when policymakers are urging the next generation to consume more in order to revive a slowing economy, youth across the country are instead embracing frugality with remarkable discipline. They cook cheap meals, avoid unnecessary purchases, and document their restraint on social media platforms where minimalism and thrift have become aspirational. This phenomenon is not merely a trend, it is a response to structural economic uncertainty, high youth unemployment, wage stagnation, an ongoing property crisis, and an eroding sense of upward mobility. The result is a generation that has learned to save, not out of cultural habit alone, but out of necessity. This essay explores why China's youth are choosing not to spend, how frugality has become both a survival strategy and a cultural statement, and what this shift reveals about deeper imbalances in China's economic model. More importantly, it asks a broader question. What happens when the world's second largest economy cannot rely on its own young people to fuel consumption? A generation under pressure, youth unemployment, and the fear of falling. For much of the past decade, China's economic narrative emphasized opportunity, rapid urbanization, expanding higher education, and the promise of white-collar employment. That promise has weakened. Youth unemployment in China has hovered around 20%, a figure that understates the lived experience of insecurity. Many graduates who are technically employed work in temporary, low-paying, or mismatched roles. Others remain unemployed, living with parents waiting for opportunities that may never arrive. Even those with jobs feel vulnerable. Layoffs in tech, real estate, education, and manufacturing have normalized precarity. Salary cuts are common, and long-term contracts are rare. Under these conditions, consumption feels less like participation in economic life and more like a gamble. As one young woman in Beijing put it, making money is more important to me right now. I need to expand my income sources and cut my costs. This mindset, prioritizing survival over enjoyment, has become widespread. The property crisis and the collapse of aspiration, home ownership, has long been central to China's vision of middle-class success. Yet for today's youth, especially in major cities, buying a home feels increasingly impossible. Sky-high property prices, coupled with unstable incomes, have eroded confidence in the future. The real estate crisis has also shattered trust in property as a safe investment. For many young people, the traditional life trajectory, education, job, marriage, home, has become fragmented. Without a realistic path toward long-term assets, short-term consumption loses its appeal. Why buy luxury goods, upgrade electronics, or dine out frequently when the most significant markers of stability remain out of reach? Frugality as a lifestyle and a statement. Social media and the rise of frugal influencers. On platforms like Xiaohongshu, Douyin, and Bilibili, frugality has become content. Influencers document how to live cheaply, cook minimal meals, reuse household items, and avoid consumption traps. One such influencer, known online as Zhang Small Grain of Rice, promotes a minimalist lifestyle. Her videos show her using a single bar of soap for all personal cleaning needs, choosing durable clothing over fashionable trends, and carefully evaluating every purchase. I hope more people will understand consumption traps so they can save, she explains. This will reduce their stress and relax them. Another creator, Little Grass Floating in Beijing, demonstrates how to prepare 2 meals for just over $1. His modest approach has allowed him, he claims, to save more than $180,000 over 6 years. These influencers are not rejecting consumption entirely, they are redefining it. Value, durability, and necessity matter more than brand or novelty. Frugality as emotional regulation. Beyond economics, frugality offers psychological comfort. In uncertain times, controlling spending provides a sense of agency. Tracking expenses, limiting purchases, and saving aggressively can reduce anxiety in an environment where external stability feels absent. This is why frugality content resonates so deeply. It is not just about money, it is about coping. Cultural roots and contemporary realities. Is this just Chinese culture? Some argue that thrift is deeply ingrained in Chinese tradition. Older generations, shaped by scarcity and political upheaval, valued saving and restraint. This cultural memory certainly plays a role. Yet culture alone cannot explain the intensity of today's frugality. Previous generations saved in order to spend later on, homes, education, or businesses. Today's youth often save without a clear vision of future reward. The difference lies in expectations. In the 1990s and early 2000s, optimism prevailed. Economic growth felt inevitable. Now, pessimism has replaced confidence. Frugality today is less about virtue and more about risk management. The macroeconomic consequences China's consumption problem. Household consumption accounts for roughly 39% of China's GDP, far lower than the 60% typical of developed economies. For years, policymakers have pledged to rebalance growth toward domestic consumption. Yet progress has been limited. China's economic model remains heavily dependent on investment and exports. This approach worked during periods of global expansion, but it is increasingly vulnerable in a world of geopolitical tension, trade disputes, and slowing demand. Without strong domestic consumption, economic resilience weakens. Deflation and the waiting game. One of the most serious risks China now faces is deflation. When consumers expect prices to fall, they delay purchases. Businesses respond by cutting prices further, compressing margins and reducing wages or employment. This creates a vicious cycle. Low spending leads to lower growth, which reinforces pessimism, further reducing spending. Young consumers rationally responding to uncertainty may unintentionally deepen the slowdown. The labor market mismatch, education without opportunity. China produces millions of university graduates each year, including large numbers with postgraduate degrees. Yet many end up in jobs that do not require their qualifications: delivery drivers, sales clerks, gig workers. Economist George Magnus describes this as a skills mismatch. The economy's shift toward automation, robotics, and AI reduces demand for labor-intensive roles, especially for entry-level professionals. For young people, this mismatch undermines the return on educational investment. Years of study do not guarantee stability, making cautious financial behavior even more rational. Government efforts and their limits. Incentives without confidence. The Chinese government has introduced measures to encourage spending, such as subsidies for replacing old cars and appliances. However, these initiatives have produced only modest results. The core problem is not incentives, but confidence. Consumers are unlikely to spend more unless they believe their incomes will rise and their futures are secure. The missing safety net. Experts argue that expanding social welfare, healthcare, unemployment benefits, pensions could reduce precautionary saving. Higher minimum wages could also stimulate consumption. Yet, structural reforms of this scale are politically and fiscally complex. A global perspective. China is not alone. While China's situation is unique, it reflects broader global trends. Across many countries, young people face rising living costs, insecure employment, and delayed milestones. What distinguishes China is scale. When hundreds of millions of young consumers pull back simultaneously, the global implications are significant. What this means for the world? China's subdued consumption affects global supply chains, commodity markets, and multinational corporations that once relied on its vast consumer base. If China cannot successfully rebalance its economy, the effects will ripple far beyond its borders. Frugality as a signal, not a flaw. The image of 2 meals for $1 is not just a curiosity, it is a signal. China's youth are not rejecting consumption out of stubbornness or tradition. They are responding rationally to an environment defined by uncertainty, risk, and limited opportunity. Their frugality is a form of quiet resistance to an economic system that no longer guarantees stability. For policymakers, the message is clear. Consumption cannot be commanded. It must be earned through confidence, security, and credible opportunity. Until then, China's young people will continue to save, simplify, and survive, one inexpensive meal at a time.